Turns, startled. He sees Young-so's wife and his daughter sitting at the table eating. They glance at him, confused as hell. Kim finally snapped back to reality, blinking and looking around, realizing he was in Young-so's house. He turned his head and noticed Young-so, completely knocked out, sleeping peacefully. Then it hit him. He had straight up passed out outside the door. Young-so's wife had said he collapsed and had been out cold ever since. Man, he must have been more exhausted than he thought. Kim glanced down at the heavy axe in his hand, and for a second, he couldn't even remember why he was holding it. What was he thinking? He quickly stashed it back into his portal, making sure no one saw it, especially Young-so's wife. She didn't need to know about that. He asked how long he'd been sleeping, and she mentioned it had only been a few hours. Then, without warning, the mood shifted. Young-so's wife, with that soft, warm smile, started thanking him, telling him how grateful she was for everything he did. Kim could feel the weight of her words. How he helped Young-so, saved his life, and brought him back home safely. The gratitude in her eyes, the way she bowed her head, it made him a little uncomfortable. Kim wasn't used to this. He felt a bit awkward, nervous even, and he just wanted to brush it off like it was no big deal. He thought about how Young-so had helped him, too. It wasn't like he did everything alone. But then, just as Kim was about to push it aside, Young-so woke up. Still groggy but determined, he jumped in to back up his wife, insisting that Kim had done more. Young-so made it sound like driving Kim here was nothing compared to how Kim had saved him over and over again. To Young-so, Kim was a straight-up lifesaver. Even if Young-so hadn't been there, he figured Kim would have made it here on his own. But then Young-so's wife switched gears, saying they all had to be hungry. And with that, the vibe shifted once again. Kim's stomach growled, and he realized he hadn't eaten in what felt like forever. She mentioned that Young-so had refused to eat without him, waiting until Kim was up. Kim couldn't help but smile. Young-so, with that goofy grin, was all about eating together. So, with a warm chuckle, they both decided it was time to dig in. And then, bam! The scene cut to the kimchi stew in front of Kim. The moment his eyes landed on it, his mouth started watering. The smell alone brought back memories of his mom. He could feel his heart tighten, but in a good way, a bittersweet kind of way. The food wasn't fancy. Young-so's wife even admitted she didn't have much to work with, but to Kim, it didn't matter. This was his favorite. Nothing felt more luxurious than kimchi stew, especially after everything he'd been through. The first bite? Heavenly. The moment that stew hit his tongue, it was like fireworks going off in his head. Every single cell in his body felt alive again. The flavor, the heat, it was almost too good to be true. And just like that, it took him back. Back to when he used to eat with his family. Back when things were simpler. But then, as the meal wrapped up, Kim felt a wave of sadness. For the first time in 3 months, he'd had a meal that reminded him of home, of family, and it made him ache. He missed them so much it hurt. Young-so, noticing Kim's quiet sadness, brought the conversation back to their journey. He mentioned that their next stop was Gangnam, and suddenly Kim paused. The realization hit him, and in that moment, he was shocked. Kim couldn't understand what Young-so was saying at first. The whole thing just felt off. Then Young-so explained it all. He'd already talked this over with his wife. Once she heard about Kim's situation, she insisted that since Kim had helped Young-so reach his family, Young-so should do the same for him. Kim was still feeling confused, though. Even if Young-so took him to Gangnam, how would Young-so get back safely on his own? They stepped outside to clear their heads, and that's when Young-so broke down the full plan. He'd drive Kim to Gangnam in his truck. Then Kim would have to leave his electric bike with Young-so. Once they got to Gangnam, Young-so would use the bike to make his way back home. Hearing this, Kim finally started to calm down, but the whole thing still didn't sit right with him. Why was Young-so going out of his way to help him? Sure, Young-so was a god-level driver, and with the bike, he'd be able to dodge most monsters, but the guy didn't have any combat skills. If a big monster, like a viper, came after him, it would be game over, and it made no sense. Young-so had a truck full of resources. His family was safe. Why risk it all just to help Kim? Something wasn't adding up. So Kim finally decided to ask the question that had been bugging him. Why was Young-so putting his life on the line for him? Young-so smiled warmly, like he knew Kim was going to ask that. Then he dropped the real reason. Why did Kim help him first? Kim didn't want anything in return, didn't ask for favors. He just helped. If Kim hadn't been there, Young-so would have died in that tunnel. So now, Young-so wanted to repay the favor because they were in the same boat. Kim might have an awakened ability, but that didn't mean life wasn't still tough for him. Young-so knew what it felt like to be desperate, to hold on to hope that your family is out there somewhere, safe. That's why he risked the tunnel. And now, he wanted Kim to feel the same joy he did when he reunited with his family. But Young-soo, with that sly grin, reassured Kim that if things got too dangerous, he'd get out. His driving skills would get him out of any situation. He wasn't about to risk his life unnecessarily, so Kim didn't need to worry. That's when Kim got hit with a flashback. He remembered when he first left for the tunnel, spotting a car with the keys still inside. Young-soo could have left everyone behind, but he didn't. He stayed with the group, helping them out. That's when Kim realized Young-soo was lying. He wasn't going to abandon Kim. He just didn't want to admit how far he was willing to go to help. So, with a kind smile, Kim agreed, but he added a condition. If Young-soo was coming with him, he had to bring his family along. Kim explained that he'd upgraded his subspace, and now he had the ability to bring others inside. Young-soo's family would be safer in there than in the building. Without hesitating for even a second, Young-soo threw on his gangster sunglasses and grinned like a boss, ready to drive that truck with his god-tier skill. Meanwhile, Kim had already upgraded his subspace to level 2, using 16 of his 116 mana stones. Now he could fit up to 20 people inside. The system told him it would take 6 mana stones a day to maintain it now, but that didn't faze him. The system asked if Kim wanted to allow external presence in the portal, and he said yes. Moments later, Young-soo, his wife, and his daughter entered the subspace. The look on their faces said it all. They were speechless. The Logitech Center was massive, stocked with endless resources. Kim called out to Pax, introducing him to Young-soo's family, and Young-soo told them that if they needed anything, Pax would handle it. Everything was infinite. They could use whatever they wanted without hesitation. Kim's wife looked absolutely shocked. It was like she couldn't believe what she was hearing. Meanwhile, Kim told them he had some business to take care of, so they should just enjoy themselves. The place was theirs for now. After that, Young-soo turned to his daughter and asked if she wanted to play princess with Daddy. They looked so happy together, and Kim couldn't help but smile as he watched them. Then, something else happened. Kim's new ability unlocked. A laboratory where he could combine, classify, and transform any registered item in his subspace. And just like that, the possibilities became endless. Kim sat there, his mind racing as he wondered if his abilities were truly what he thought they were. He remembered the first time his ability unlocked. It was called Subspace. Back then, he could store anything he wanted. If he stored an apple, that apple would be in his subspace for life. But then, by some crazy accident, he ended up storing the entire Logitech Center in there, which completely upgraded his ability. His subspace merged with the Logitech Center, evolving his powers even further. Now, no one could enter his subspace except for him. But that wasn't the wildest part. The Pax AI from the Logitech Center, yeah, that merged with his system too. Now, those cold mechanical AIs had developed human-like emotions, and just when he thought it couldn't get crazier, the mechanisms from the Logitech Center, like shipment, evolved. Now he could launch items at 100 kilometers per hour. Subspace alone was insane, but with the addition of Pax AI, it was a whole new level of madness. Kim hadn't expected his ability to upgrade this much, but after reaching level 2, the game had changed. Kim now had another wild option. He could put anything in his subspace one more time. That revelation shocked him. The idea that he could store anything, that he had a personal lab where he could combine and create new items, was mind-boggling. At this point, it was like playing Minecraft IRL. He couldn't help but wonder what would happen if his subspace hit level 3 or 4. What kind of crazy powers would unlock then? But thinking about it wasn't going to get him anywhere. He didn't have enough mana stones to level up just yet. So for now, he needed to focus on what new thing he would add to his subspace. Last time, it had been the Logitech Center, which turned out to be a blessing in disguise. But now, Kim, with a majestic aura, decided to command his system to store the entire Earth in his subspace. Yeah, you read that right. He was about to store the Earth. If that happened, every living being would float off into space. The system asked for confirmation, and Kim, with a bit of tension, confirmed. But after 2 minutes, nothing happened. Then the system sent a notification: failure. The Earth couldn't be stored because it was outside the storage range. Kim sighed, figuring something like that would happen, but he had to try. It was worth a shot. Suddenly, Young-soo appeared, talking about the route to Gangnam. Kim listened, but quickly asked why Young-soo wasn't playing with his daughter like he had said. Young-soo smiled kindly and explained that his daughter had been scared in the building, never feeling safe. But now, in this new place, she felt secure, and that's why she'd finally fallen asleep. It was all thanks to Kim. Young-so was grateful, and Kim, always humble, reminded him that Young-so had helped him just as much. If it hadn't been for Young-so's driving skills, Kim wouldn't have made it this far. They were even, in his mind. But Young-so, with a serious tone, said he'd do whatever he could to help Kim. The scene shifted, and there they were. Young-so, driving his truck in God mode, rocking his gangster glasses. Kim was tense, feeling like the air had gotten heavier. Something was off, and he could feel it. Young-so, smiling, casually said that driving was the only thing he was good at, and he was confident no one could drive faster than him. He told Kim to buckle up, because things were about to get wild. Kim knew exactly what was coming, and started crying inside. And then, it happened. Young-so hit the gas, and the truck blasted off like a rocket. In no time, they had covered a huge distance, but everywhere they looked, there was nothing but destruction. The land was torn apart, and buildings were in ruins. While Young-so kept his cool, smiling, Kim looked like a zombie. His face was pale, dried up from the stress. Young-so mentioned they'd be at their destination soon, but just as they were closing in, they saw the road was blocked. Military barricades, complete with spike strips, were laid out. Kim realized something wasn't right. These weren't normal barricades. As they looked closer, a military jeep approached, but the people inside didn't look like soldiers. Kim tensed up, serious now. Those men, they weren't military, they were coming for trouble. Kim knew if they tried to escape, they'd be gunned down. Young-so asked, tense, what they should do. Kim opened his portal and told Young-so to get in. He'd handle the rest. Without hesitation, Young-so slipped into the portal, and Kim prepared to face whatever came next. Kim stood by the truck, eyeing the three guys stepping up with guns in hand. They strutted up like they owned the place, barking orders. One of them, all muscle and no brains, had the nerve to tell Kim to get out of the truck. Kim, barely holding back a smirk, just stared them down with a deadly glare. Without a word, he stepped out. They popped open the back of the truck and were shocked to see it packed with food. Their eyes lit up, like they hit the jackpot. They turned to Kim, asking if all that food was his. Kim, calm as ever, just nodded. But the musclehead stepped up, flexing his authority, and said that this food wasn't Kim's anymore. It was theirs now. Kim knew these clowns weren't military, not even close. These jokers were just after his resources. Musclehead, trying to look tough, asked Kim where he got all this stuff from. Kim, deciding to play dumb, acted like a clueless delivery boy and said he worked at the Logitech Center. They weren't buying it and demanded to know where the center was. Kim explained in the most casual tone that even if he told them, they wouldn't make it there. The roads were blocked, and monsters were all over the place. He had barely made it himself, just trying to survive. Musclehead wasn't impressed. He shot Kim a deadly stare, asking how much more loot was left at the center. Kim, playing along, said the food in the truck was just a fraction of what was stored there. One of the other guys checked his watch, muttering that it was almost time. Kim was confused. What were they rushing for? Before he could figure it out, bam! Musclehead punched him straight in the gut. Kim hit the ground hard. Wind knocked out of him. Before he could even catch his breath, the ugly fatso behind them slapped a cloth over Kim's face, knocking him out cold. Next thing, Kim woke up in a dim room, tied to a chair. His vision was still blurry, but he saw Ugly Fatso sitting in front of him on some wannabe commander's throne. A body lay on the ground nearby, blood pooling around it. Clearly a dead soldier. Kim quickly put it together. These thugs had taken over the military base. Ugly Fatso started talking, explaining how they'd killed off the military and made themselves the new bosses around here. Turns out they'd been fighting Vibrants, flying monsters that came every day at 6 p.m. sharp. The military had tried to fight them off with guns, but nothing worked. So they recruited people like Ugly Fatso and his crew. But when the military couldn't keep up, Fatso and his gang just wiped them out. Now, Ugly Fatso was the self-proclaimed commander. He made it clear to Kim that he hadn't killed him yet only because he needed him. Kim's job? To go back to the Logitech Center with some of Fatso's guys and raid it for resources. If Kim succeeded, maybe, just maybe, Fatso would let him join their gang and protect him. Kim had heard enough. Annoyed, didn't even begin to cover it. He was beyond done with these clowns. He stood there, pissed, thinking about what to do next. Then it hit him. This military base would make the perfect addition to his subspace. Without a second thought, he ordered Pax to store the entire Joint Commander Communication Headquarters into his subspace. Fatso didn't even realize what was happening. He sat there, confused, as the entire military base around him disappeared. 1 minute it was there, the next it was gone. Poof! Fatso was left sitting on his chair, out in the middle of nowhere, completely clueless. By the time Ugly Fatso figured out what had happened, it was too late. Kim had already disappeared into his portal, leaving Fatso sitting there with nothing but his chair in the middle of the deserted wasteland. At least Kim was nice enough to leave him something to sit on. All around, Pighead and his goons are left totally dumbstruck. They're clutching their rifles, heads tilted to the sky, trying to wrap their brains around the fact that the entire building they were just in vanished. The Pighead himself just sits there in his seat, eyes darting left and right, fear and confusion plastered across his face. He's thinking, where the hell did the entire building go? Meanwhile, Kim spits on the ground only to see a hint of blood in it. That punch from Pighead must have done some internal damage. He feels himself start to sway, like he might faint any second. The military base had drained his mana like nothing he'd felt before. It was like his energy had been sucked dry, leaving him weak as hell. Kim thinks if he'd known it would hit him this hard, maybe he would have waited, played it safe, maybe ducked into his subspace first. But it was too late for maybe. He'd made his choice, and now he just had to deal with it. Right now, the only thing on his mind was getting into his subspace to recover. As Kim slips into the shadows, Pighead's crew suddenly freezes as the sky turns blood red. The air fills with a dark, eerie shadow, the Wyverns. Hundreds of them, wings stretched wide, flying right for them, growling and screeching, ready to rip into anyone in sight. Panic hits Pighead's companions like a slap to the face. They scatter in every direction, forgetting Kim entirely as they dash for their lives. Even the guy who had Kim locked up bolts, leaving Kim free to drop to the ground. Pighead, furious, starts shouting at his team. He tries to rally them, yelling that their rifles could still take out the smaller wyverns. He's determined to take down the big one himself, but his men, they don't listen. They're too busy running for their lives. Pighead's face contorts in rage. He's cursing, calling them traitors, but then, bam! The ground trembles. Something huge lands behind him, shaking the earth under his feet. He turns slowly, terror carving lines in his face. There, towering above him, is a wyvern, massive. This thing isn't like the others. It's a solid 20 feet tall, black scales glinting in the red sky. Its yellow eyes fixed on him with a deadly stare. This wyvern is 20 times bigger than any he's seen, a true nightmare in the flesh. And while all hell is breaking loose, we see Kim slipping into his subspace, carrying an injured military soldier along with him. The system pings, asking Kim if he wants to allow the outsider in. With a weary nod, he approves, letting both of them into his subspace. Kim feels the weight of exhaustion dragging him down even more, and he knows he's seconds away from passing out. His mind is racing. He barely managed to sneak himself and the soldier inside. Next time, he's going to have to be careful with these after effects. Storing anything huge, especially in a critical moment, could be dangerous. The black-scaled wyvern looms behind Kim, its intense gaze locked directly onto him, like it's about to pounce. Kim feels that icy stare pierce right through him, and he can't help but wonder, why the hell is this thing eyeing me? Meanwhile, the Pighead, oozing overconfidence, stands tall in front of the wyvern. He's muttering on about his new physical enhancement ability and how he can break boulders with a single punch. Without hesitation, he swings his fist at the wyvern, but to the massive creature, it's like being tickled by a mosquito. The wyvern doesn't even flinch. Then, out of nowhere, a deafening, bone-chilling crunch fills the air. Kim, who really doesn't want to see what's happening, slowly turns around only to have his eyes go wide with shock. In one brutal bite, the wyvern chomps down on Pighead, swallowing him whole. And just like that, the Pighead's done for, gone in a single gulp. At that moment, Young Soo rushes over to Kim, checking if he's all right. Kim reassures him, though he's clearly worn out. He's drained, his energy barely hanging on by a thread. But he managed to bring an injured military officer back with him, who's looking worse for wear. Kim and Young Soo gently lower the officer onto a bed, breathing a sigh of relief. Upon examining the officer, they notice he has no major injuries, just a few scratches here and there. But the man looks severely malnourished. Kim recalls Pighead ranting about how they'd taken over the military base, but were running low on food supplies. The officer must have suffered weeks without proper food. Young Soo then mentions something strange happening in Kim's subspace. A whole massive structure had appeared, and not just any structure, it looked like an entire city. Young-soo leads Kim to a spot where he can see for himself, and Kim's jaw drops. He thought he'd just stored the military base building, but he'd actually snatched the entire base city right into his subspace. Kim's mind races. He hadn't realized the extent of his power. He only gave the command to store the military base without specifying a single building, so the system interpreted it as the whole damn city. Young-soo is equally shocked, standing there, mouth open, trying to process this mind-bending reality. Kim lets him know he'll need to explore the military base thoroughly. Meanwhile, Young-soo agrees to keep an eye on the officer and alert Kim when he wakes up. Kim sets off to explore his new domain. Hopping into his Mercedes, he starts driving through the military base city, his mind buzzing with possibilities. Weapons, ammo, explosives, gas masks, military vehicles, even tanks. It's like he's found the ultimate jackpot for surviving the apocalypse. But there's a hitch. Unlike the Logitech Center, where Pax manages everything and can ship items directly to him, this is a sprawling military city. If Kim needs something here, he's got to find it himself. He realizes he'll need to map out the entire place. The guns are likely in the armory, the ammo and explosives in a magazine. Every single item will require a trek across the city. As he drives, he's struck by just how massive this place truly is. Kim realizes he's got a monumental task ahead of him, mapping out every inch of this massive base. As he drives, he can't help but feel like an absolute fool for not realizing sooner. If he'd known the base was this huge, he would have stored all the weapons, tanks, and ammo directly in his subspace from the start. Now he's scheming a new plan. Once he locates everything, he'll send Young-soo to retrieve the ammo and weapons from the base while he stays back, ready to attack from his portal. Then, a thought slams into him. Supplies aren't infinite here. Unlike his Logitech Center with endless stock, the military base resources could run out. No more unlimited bullets or grenades to fire off recklessly. He's still mulling over the logistics when Pax AI suddenly appears and, with a casual tone, tells Kim he's got it all wrong. This base isn't like a regular storage facility. It's programmed with the Logitech system format, thanks to Pax. The entire base is now treated as part of his subspace, just like the Logitech Center. Kim's jaw nearly hits the floor. Pax goes on explaining that since the military base has merged with the subspace, Kim can command it exactly as he does with the Logitech Center. In essence, he can summon any military gear, vehicles, ammo, anything he wants, right to his side. Kim stares in disbelief as Pax confirms that, once synchronized, he'll have unlimited access to the military supplies, just like in the Logitech Center. This changes everything. Kim can barely wrap his head around it. His mind races with possibilities, his face a mix of shock, wonder, and pure joy. He asks Pax for double confirmation. Are they talking about endless rifles, ammo, grenades, everything? Pax nods, and it's like Kim's whole world has flipped. This isn't just revolutionary, it's straight-up game-changing. Still buzzing with excitement, Kim needs details. He asks Pax how long the synchronization will take. Pax admits it's a massive task, with only 0.81% completed so far, so the exact timeline is anyone's guess. But then Pax suggests a workaround. If Kim prioritizes certain items, Pax can sync those first, making them immediately available. Without missing a beat, Kim lists his must-haves: rifles, ammo, grenades, vehicles, and fuel. These are the essentials, the lifeblood for survival in this apocalyptic mess. Kim smirks, knowing that once he has those at his fingertips, there's nothing out there he can't face. Pax tells Kim that the synchronization will be ready in 10 minutes flat. After that, unlimited access to all weapons, vehicles, and supplies, everything he needs to go full throttle. Kim, feeling a surge of confidence, asks Pax if there's a lock system, something that'll ensure no one can touch the military base without his direct say-so. Pax confirms with a simple yes. Satisfied, Kim instructs him to secure everything immediately. Kim mulls it over for a second. It's not that he doesn't trust Young-soo and his family. It's just this soldier he's not sure about. He stands before his portal, knowing he now holds the power of food, vehicles, and weapons in his hands. He just hopes that the situation outside isn't as chaotic as he suspects. But as we shift scenes, the reality is brutal. The Wyverns are on a rampage. Pighead and his lackeys are being torn apart one by one. Kim realizes the situation outside isn't going to calm down anytime soon. Back inside, Kim and Young-soo get ready for battle mode. Young-soo's in his old boss uniform, looking every bit the part, and Kim grips his M416 rifle, locking and loading. In front of them lies a massive box filled with endless ammo. Young-soo remarks, with a hint of nostalgia, that it's been years since he held a gun. He never thought he'd be back in action, firing off rounds like this again. Kim reassures him. He's duplicated thousands of rounds, packing each box with 10,000 bullets. Young-soo doesn't need to worry about any jams or breakages. There's plenty of firepower to go around. Then Kim gives Young-soo a little challenge, asks if he still knows how to shoot. With a smirk, Young-soo picks up his own M416 and says he's about to show Kim how much of a badass shooter he was back in his day. He takes aim, lets out a breath, and bang! Every bullet finds its target, dropping wyverns left and right. Headshot after headshot, he downs over 50 wyverns in record time. After half an hour, Young-soo's gun is glowing red-hot from all the firing, smoke thick in the air. When the haze finally clears, the floor is littered with wyvern bodies. Young-soo, adrenaline still pumping, says he hasn't enjoyed himself like this in years. He figures they've taken out all the wyverns and are waiting for them to slip up. After hours of failed hunting, it probably decided to look for easier prey. It's a relief, at least for now. They wait an extra hour just to be sure. When the wyvern doesn't return, Kim and Young-soo share a glance. Exhausted, but determined, they pick themselves up, gather their supplies, and brace themselves. It's time to continue the journey. The scene shifts and we see Kim and Young-soo hitting the road again. Young-soo, still visibly shaken, can't help but mumble about the horror of that huge wyvern. Kim's on the same page, his mind racing with worry. Those dozens of grenade explosions barely left a scratch on that beast. If a wyvern that size shrugs off grenades, what the hell kind of weapon would it take to bring it down? Kim starts realizing that regular explosives just aren't cutting it. Grenades are designed for taking out smaller targets, humans, not dragon. Sure, he could pull out a rocket launcher, a missile, maybe even a bomb from his subspace, but that much firepower would probably level the city around them, innocent lives and all. He can't go down that path, not if he wants to keep his humanity intact. The idea of hurling missiles and bombs like a madman makes him feel like a monster himself, and that's something he won't let happen. He's frustrated as hell. What he needs is a weapon that's as powerful as a bomb, but doesn't destroy everything around it. The more he thinks about it, the more his head starts to ache. He considers that maybe if he had something heavy as hell dropped from an incredible height, it could do some serious damage to that wyvern. But the idea of using a military tank is out. The wyvern would dodge it in a heartbeat. What he needs is something small, heavy, and lethal. But that doesn't even exist right now. At this point, he's stuck. Grenades and guns are about all he's got. But just as he's resigned to it, he decides to check his magic stones, wondering how many he's got left. When he glances at his magic crystal, he's shocked. 314 magic stones? Where did they come from? He remembers killing 50, 100 orcs and goblins and barely scraping together 50 stones, but maybe wyverns yield more. With that many magic stones, Kim gets an idea. He'll upgrade his skills. He pumps 100 stones into his subspace upgrade, boosting his shipping range to a whopping 50 meters. Not only that, but he can now ship 4 items per second. This ability is turning insanely powerful. He still has 189 stones left, but there's one thing he hasn't even tried yet: his pocket dimension lab. It was something he'd unlocked with his last upgrade, but never got around to exploring. Curiosity piqued, Kim decides to unlock it. He pours 50 magic stones into it, and just like that, his pocket dimension lab comes to life. According to the description, this is a place where he can combine or separate anything he wants. A spark of excitement flashes in his eyes. Maybe he can create something new, something that will give him the edge he so desperately needs. Kim turns to Young-soo, telling him he's got something important to check out, so Young-soo should go chill in the subspace for a bit. Young-soo pauses, and with a grin, he says they're almost at Gangnam. He points out there's no sign of monsters, so he'd rather just keep driving while Kim can go check his subspace. Kim's worried, though, and he asks if Young-soo's sure it's safe. Young-soo, ever the genius, suggests that if Kim's that concerned, Kim can just head inside the subspace, and Young-soo will keep driving the Mercedes forward. Young-soo's observed that when Kim's inside his portal, as long as he's driving, the portal stays with him. After hearing this, Kim's intrigued, and he ducks into his portal. Sure enough, as Young-soo drives, Kim notices he's moving right along with him. Impressed by the setup, Kim agrees to the plan, but still feels a little tense. He steps into his newly unlocked pocket dimension to explore. Inside, everything is white, vast, and empty. Kim wanders around, testing out his new space, and his system pipes up, explaining the deal. Here, Kim can do 2 things: combine and separate objects. He can merge multiple items regardless of their form, or break them down into basic components. Kim's mind races. This could be game-changing. Could he, for instance, combine a rifle with its magazine to create a continuous ammo feed so he wouldn't have to reload? Pax gives him the green light, confirming Kim's idea is totally doable. Next, Kim wonders if he could remove a grenade's safety pin while storing it, so the moment it's shipped out, it explodes. Pax confirms again. Curious to test it, Kim asks Pax to remove the pin and create a new item. It costs him 15 magic stones, and as soon as he sees the result, Kim is fascinated. But he knows this grenade alone won't cut it for the big wyvern. He needs something way stronger. An idea clicks, and Kim, with a smirk, begins building a secret weapon. Meanwhile, Young-soo's out on the road when he hits a dead end. A massive mountain of cars stacked up like some post-apocalyptic wall. Who the hell would make a car wall? Just then, Kim emerges from his subspace, asking how much longer to Gangnam. Young-soo explains there's no monster trouble, but someone's blocked the entire road with cars. He suggests they'll need a detour. Kim stops him. No need for a detour. He's got a new weapon that can clear the way. Young-soo's about to ask what weapon he's talking about when, bam! The cars start flying into the air. Massive metal plates, each 20 kilograms, come flying out like bullets, slamming into the cars at an incredible speed. Cars start scattering like toys. Young-soo stares, shocked. It's a stack of 20 kilograms plates glued together, flying at 150 kilometers per h, creating a 500 kilograms barrage on anything in its path. He watches in awe and shouts, "What on earth did you create?" The scene shifts, and we see some folks guarding the road from atop a building, trying to spot any monster lurking around. They're holding whatever they can for weapons, but honestly, it's all just household tools. One of the middle-aged men is scared and confused. He's wondering, how the hell did that wall of cars collapse so fast? The guy next to him, the depressed one, is equally baffled. He says that wall had withstood so many monster attacks, it shouldn't have crumbled like that. But then, the depressed guy notices something down the road. Smoke everywhere, and through that smoke, a jeep comes barreling forward. It picks up speed and stops right in front of their building. The men grab their weapons, if you can call a wooden stick a weapon, and they just stare at the scene. They're both shocked. Who are these people? Soldiers. They must be, considering they're rolling up in a military jeep. Slowly, the car's black-tinted window rolls down, and from inside, Kim flashes a kind smile and asks the folks up top, "Is Nurse Kim Jui here?" The scene shifts again, taking us into a flashback. Kim's sister number 2, the middle child, delivers a flying kick so hard that Kim almost faints. He spits out, stunned. Meanwhile, Juhi, the eldest child, aka sister number 1, is quietly studying and telling her siblings to keep it down because she's prepping for an exam. Kim and sister number 2 are stunned, mouths wide open. Sister number 2, looking very concerned, asks Juhi if she's feeling okay. Why is she suddenly so intense about studying? Is she sick? Juhi snaps back, asking if it's that shocking for her to study hard. But Kim, totally serious, turns to sister number 2. "Yeah, she definitely doesn't look well. We better call Mom. She's lost it." Juhi's anger erupts, and she starts shouting, asking if they'll ever let her study in peace. Kim explains that Juhi, who's 8 years older than him, only started taking school seriously when he was around 7. And since she'd never sat still in a chair for more than 30 minutes before, her sudden change had the whole family on edge. Kim and sister number 2 drag their mom over to Juhi, their eyes big with worry, pointing out that their big sis has totally lost her mind. Even Juhi's mom looks concerned. Juhi can't believe it. Her family doesn't think she's capable of doing anything with her life. Frustrated, Juhi reveals her secret. She proudly shows them her doctor's book and announces her dream. She's decided she's going to become a doctor. She declares, "Even if the world ends tomorrow, today I'll still treat the sick." Her face glows with pride, her eyes sparkle with determination. The whole family is stunned. They stare at her, completely speechless. Kim and sister number 2 turn to their mom, whispering that Juhi's condition is getting worse and maybe she needs a mental hospital visit ASAP. The house descends into a lovely family brawl, everyone going at it, laughing, yelling, the works. Days pass, and the family assumes Juhi's passion was just a teenage phase, that her goal to become a doctor would fade away. But no, her grades shoot up. She skyrockets through high school, and before anyone knew it, she gets accepted into the top nursing school she applied for. Her dad, mom, Kim, sister number 2, everyone is shocked. Juhi, who once couldn't sit still for 30 minutes, has achieved the unbelievable. Back to the present. We see Juhi standing there, face frozen in shock, staring at Kim, who's now come back to find her. It's all real. Her journey, her family, her dream, and now, this reunion. Suddenly, Juhi starts crying, tears streaming down her face, cheeks turning red. Kim is standing right in front of her. Kim's eyes fill with tears too, his face also flushed with emotion. He's so overwhelmed he can barely speak. Juhi, still sobbing, her voice choked, asks Kim, "How did you make it this far? Are you hurt? Are you hurt?" But Kim, just as emotional, can't get the words out either. Through his tears, he tries to explain that he's fine. Nothing happened to him. This heartfelt reunion catches Young-soo's eye from behind, and he watches them with a warm, kind smile. He whispers to himself, "Thank God, Kim's sister is safe." After a moment, Kim and Juhi finally embrace each other, holding on tightly, both crying. They cling to each other, letting the weight of the world fall away, if only for a few moments. When Kim finally calms down, he wipes his tears, then turns to introduce Young-soo. He explains that Young-soo helped him the most to get here safely. Young-soo bows his head respectfully, introducing himself, and Joo-hee, grateful beyond words, introduces herself as Kim's older sister. From the depths of her heart, she thanks Young-soo for keeping her little brother safe in this apocalyptic nightmare. Then, Joo-hee suddenly reaches into her pocket, and with a small, mischievous smile, she tells Kim she has something for him. She figures Kim probably hasn't eaten much in this mess and could use something sweet. She pulls out a chocolate bar and hands it to him, but Kim stops her. He tells her, "I'm really full, sis. Actually, I've got enough chocolate to last me a lifetime." But then Kim's expression turns serious as he explains that he has a patient in critical condition. Joo-hee's face immediately shifts to concern, and she asks where the patient is, insisting they bring him to her immediately. But Kim explains that the patient isn't in the car. In fact, he's in Kim's subspace. Joo-hee's jaw drops, her eyes widening in shock. "Kim, you have an ability too?" Kim nods, explaining he unlocked an ability called Subspace. He can open a portal to a hidden space where only he and those he allows can enter. "It'd probably freak people out if they saw it." He laughs a bit nervously, so he suggests they find a private spot. Joo-hee agrees, noticing all the people around, and says it's best they head inside the hospital. "We'll have more privacy there." Slowly, Kim, Young-soo, and Joo-hee enter the hospital, and the sight inside is nothing short of heartbreaking. Kim takes it all in. People clutching nothing but wooden sticks for protection, hollow-eyed and starving, their bodies sprawled across the floor like lifeless corpses. After that, they finally reach Joo-hee's private chamber. Young-soo shuts the door behind them, leaving only Joo-hee, Young-soo, and Kim in the room. Then, at long last, Kim opens the door to his subspace. As soon as he does, Joo-hee's jaw drops. She stands there, eyes wide, mouth open, totally shocked by the vast, city-like area in front of her. She stares, asking, "What the hell is this? Are all these buildings part of your ability?" But Kim quickly reassures her that he'll explain later. For now, she needs to follow him. They make their way to the room where Kim had kept the injured military man. Joo-hee rushes to his side and begins checking his body. Kim, still anxious, asks, "What do you think, Joo-hee? Will he make it?" Joo-hee, dead serious, asks how long he's been like this. Kim explains that he doesn't know for sure, but it couldn't have been too long since he found him on the way here. He suspects the man was beaten and tortured. His condition wasn't good from the start. Then Joo-hee drops a bomb. With a somber look, she tells Kim this man might not survive for long. Hearing this, both Kim and Young-soo freeze, fear in their eyes. They were holding on to hope that this man could be saved. Kim, desperate, asks, "Is it really that bad?" But then Joo-hee's tone changes. She smiles, explaining that normally his chances would be slim. But just then, Joo-hee's hands start glowing with a green aura, and she grins with confidence. "Isn't it cool?" she says, "because I've awakened as a healer?" She places her glowing hands on the soldier's chest, the green light spreading over his entire body. She warns them that her level is still low, so full recovery is tough, but he won't die. After 5 minutes, Joo-hee finishes the healing. The soldier's wounds close, and his breathing steadies. Joo-hee explains that while it's not a full recovery, the basics are covered. He's severely malnourished and will need food and rest to regain his strength. Suddenly, Kim says, "Sis, even if the world is ending, you're still treating patients, just like you said you would." Joo-hee, caught off guard and a little embarrassed, laughs nervously. "Why bring that up now?" But Kim, undeterred, repeats her words from childhood. "Even if the world ends tomorrow, I'll still treat the sick today." Blushing, Joo-hee shouts, "I should have disciplined you like sister number 2 did when you were young." And just like that, they're bickering again. Finally, when the playful quarrel dies down, Joo-hee turns serious and asks, "Now explain everything. What's been going on?" Kim, slowly and with detail, explains the whole story, how he got trapped in the storehouse, how he sent messages to Joo-hee and sister number 2, and how the entire network system went down. He recounts unlocking his subspace ability, accidentally storing the Logitech Center, and merging with Pax AI. He explains meeting Young-soo and their journey here, but while Kim is telling the story, Joo-hee is scarfing down a meal like she hasn't eaten in days. Kim sighs, annoyed, and asks, "Are you even listening, Joo-hee?" Joo-hee, mouth full, nods and says, "Of course I'm listening." So Kim challenges her, "All right, what did I just say?" Joo-hee, clearly distracted, fumbles and summarizes with 2 words, missing most of the main details. Kim groans but lets it slide, laughing a little. This delicious meal, it turns out, was prepared by Young-soo's wife, who introduces herself to Juhi. Juhi smiles and warmly says, "Nice to meet you. I love you already." They all share a laugh, and Young-soo's wife says if Juhi's still hungry, there's plenty more in the fridge. Just ask. Then she tells Kim she's prepared a bed and set up the first-floor staff room with supplies, suggesting he rest comfortably. Kim tries to thank her, insisting she didn't need to go through so much trouble, but she smiles, replying that with all Kim has done for them, it's the least she could do. Juhi, still curious, turns to Kim and asks, "How did Young-soo and his wife get into your subspace anyway?" Kim, exasperated, groans, "I literally just told you this whole story, Juhi." But Juhi shrugs, and so, with a sigh, Kim begins the story again. After that, Kim starts explaining his future plans. He sums it up, saying he's going to bring his entire family into his subspace. The first objective is already complete. His older sister Juhi is safely inside. Next, he'll go to find sister number 2, who is in Area 0. Hearing this, Juhi's expression changes. With a serious tone, she apologizes to Kim, explaining that she can't come with him because she has to stay here. Kim's face falls, shocked. "Why do you have to stay in such a dangerous place all alone?" he asks, concerned. Juhi sighs, agreeing that Kim is right about the danger, but it's not just about that. There are other patients and other nurses can help with them, but Juhi stops mid-sentence as the scene cuts away. In another building, a shadowy figure peers through a window at Juhi and Kim's building. He notes that 2 people arrived in a military jeep and heard from his guards that a loud crash came from the car wall outside. The wall broke from a jeep? He wonders. Confused, he speculates they might be special forces, but an unknown voice from behind him interrupts, suggesting that one of them is Juhi's younger brother. Finally, the face of this man is revealed, ugly and intimidating. His companion, sounding hopeful, mentions that if one of them is Juhi's brother, they may not be hostile, just in need of food and shelter. With control over the food supplies, they could leverage Kim if necessary. But the ugly man's face turns serious, smirking as he says, "Do you really think those 2 are stronger than you?" Just then, a towering, 7-foot muscular figure steps forward from the shadows. His body is veiny and dead-eyed, like some kind of living corpse. The muscular man assures the boss it's unlikely anyone is stronger than him. The boss orders him to greet Juhi and her brother warmly, pretending to extend kindness while making sure to repair the broken car wall. The muscular man nods, explaining he doubled the height of the wall, making it impossible to break through again. The scene shifts back to Kim and Juhi, where Juhi begins telling Kim about the departmental head, Jin. She explains that Jin has an awakened ability, allowing him to control minds and poison people. Kim's face grows deadly serious as he listens. Juhi continues, saying Jin has somehow taken control of most of the awakened people in this area, and they are guarding the food and monostone storages. Due to this, people in Juhi's building are starving. She's been stealing monostones in secret, trying to strengthen her own ability to potentially cure the poisoned and mind-controlled people. She explains that she'll stay behind to help these people while Kim goes to rescue their mom and dad. But Kim firmly says no. Juhi, angry, begins to explain that the people here have no food or water. "They'll starve," she says, frustrated. But Kim, in an annoyed tone, interrupts, asking, "Did you even listen to my entire story? The second time?" Juhi sits there confused, while Kim, arms crossed and eyes closed, coolly points out, "The main weapon Jin has is control over food, right?" Juhi nods. With a smirking smile, Kim says, "Then solving this problem is a piece of cake for me." He tells Juhi to watch his awesome ability in action. Juhi cringes a bit, muttering that Kim's middle school phase seems to have returned, but before she can even finish her sentence, her jaw drops. Out of Kim's subspace, stacks of meat, vegetables, water, and other food supplies come tumbling down from above, filling the room from top to bottom. The episode ends with this scene, leaving Juhi and the others staring in shock. Well, at this point, our boy Kim just discovered the ultimate infinite food glitch. After that, the scene shifts, and we are shown the same pervy doctor who mixed his special juice into the hospital food, fed it to the people in the hospital, and is now controlling their minds. An assistant of Pervy Doctor comes running to him and informs him that an issue has occurred. Pervy Doctor smirks and confidently says that he knows about Juhi's brother arriving with some food in a small car. But Pervy Doctor dismisses the matter, saying how much food can 2 people possibly bring in a small military vehicle? To him, this is nothing. Pervy Doctor and his group already have enough food to fill an entire truck. He assures himself that Juhi and her brother cannot possibly spoil his plans. With an evil smile, Pervy Doctor adds that soon, Juhi and her brother's food will run out because all the hungry people in the hospital will attack them like mad beasts and snatch their food. He smugly predicts that as soon as their food is gone, all the hospital's desperate people will come begging for food from Pervy Doctor. He sneers, saying that Juhi and her brother were foolish to be so generous. They should have quietly sat in a corner and eaten their food slowly. Their generosity, he remarks, will now turn their life into hell. Yet, Pervy Doctor gleefully admits that Juhi and her brother, in their naivety, have made his work easier. Now, everything will unfold on its own without him lifting a finger. But before Pervy Doctor could finish his smug declaration, his assistant interrupts, stating that Juhi and her brother have a surprising amount of food. The assistant explains that the food they brought is almost double what Pervy Doctor's group has. Hearing this, Pervy Doctor's eyes go wide open in shock. He cannot believe what he just heard. Pervy Doctor wonders aloud how it is even possible for Juhi and her brother to have food equivalent to 2 trucks worth, especially since Juhi's brother came in a small military jeep. How much food can a jeep hold? A thought dawns on Pervy Doctor. Juhi's brother might be an ability user. He suspects that Juhi's brother has a non-combat ability that allows him to reduce the size of objects, perhaps something akin to Doraemon's small light. Pervy Doctor concludes that Juhi's brother must have reduced a massive amount of food to a portable size and brought it in his pocket. Realizing this possibility, Pervy Doctor gets tensed. His smugness fades into worry, and his demeanor turns serious. Trying to regain control, Pervy Doctor goes to a corner, turns on his mobile phone, and starts watching a video. The video is of Johnny Bro, where a doctor checks a woman's body and performs a miraculous fix. After watching this bizarre video, Pervy Doctor regains his twisted confidence. He takes out his special juice, carefully places it in a small box, and hands it to his assistant. Pervy Doctor orders his assistant to mix this juice into Juhi's brother's food and feed it to both Juhi and her brother. Once consumed, Pervy Doctor plans to bring them under his control, but he gives a final order. If Juhi and her brother refuse to eat, kill them. The scene shifts, and we now see Kim walking through the hospital. He is moving from person to person, distributing food, but there's something peculiar about him. Kim's eyes dart from face to face with a determined focus. It's as though he's searching for someone. Kim internally reveals to us that Juhi has already told him about a particular individual he needs to find. Juhi assured him that he would recognize this person immediately upon seeing him. A flashback starts, taking us back 10 minutes earlier. Juhi is sitting with Kim, explaining the situation. She tells him that Pervy Doctor's one and only advantage is food. Pervy Doctor controls the hospital because he controls all the food supplies there. In that food, Pervy Doctor mixes his special juice to manipulate people's minds. All the hungry individuals in the hospital are left with no choice but to eat the food, despite knowing it is tainted with Pervy Doctor's drug. Juhi further explains that the drug causes temporary mind control. People lose their willpower for a short time, but eventually regain their senses. Her plan is simple, yet ambitious. Feed the hospital with unlimited food, so they no longer rely on Pervy Doctor. Once they stop consuming his drug-laden food, Juhi plans to neutralize the effects of Pervy Doctor's control. However, Kim questions Juhi's strategy. He asks if feeding everyone would truly make them peaceful. Could some of them use their awakened abilities to turn on him? Juhi dismisses Kim's concerns, explaining that most hospital residents have non-threatening abilities. Juhi elaborates, listing absurd abilities. Some people can open cans easily, others can warm their hands to press fabric, and a few can wash clothes like a washing machine or brush their teeth without tool. Kim is stunned at the sheer uselessness of these abilities. He cannot believe these people exist. But Juhi warns Kim about one exception. There's a highly dangerous person Kim needs to watch out for. Juhi compares this individual to the Hulk, describing him as a powerhouse of strength. His name is Hyun-gu. Juhi narrates Hyun-gu's story. After the apocalypse began, Hyun-gu traveled to this hospital, worried about his ailing mother. While trying to secure food from pervy doctor for his mother, Hyun-gu fell under his control. Since then, Hyun-gu has been an enforcer for pervy doctor, making him a significant threat. The flashback ends. The scene returns to Kim walking through the hospital. He approaches a dimly lit room, his heart pounding. Suddenly, Kim hears heavy footsteps echoing through the hallway. Loud and thunderous, the sound grows closer and closer. Kim freezes, knowing that something or someone powerful is about to appear. Kim looks to his left and notices a huge figure, almost double Kim's size, approaching him. The man's bicep is bigger than Kim's leg. At this moment, a flashback of Jui's words echoes in Kim's mind. Jui had mentioned that she didn't know much about Hyun-gu's ability, but assured Kim that Hyun-gu's massive size made him unmistakable. She also explained how Hyun-gu had single-handedly built a huge car barrier by crushing hundreds of cars with his bare hands. Back in the present, Hyun-gu slowly approaches Kim. His intense presence fills the air as he locks eyes with Kim and says, in a deep, commanding voice, that he recognizes Kim as Juhi's younger brother. Hyun-gu declares that he wants to talk to Kim. On the other hand, Kim, though a bit nervous, maintains his composure and signals Hyun-gu to speak. The two stand in silence for a moment, locked in a tense stare. Suddenly, the scene shifts, and we see that Hyun-gu's eyes are glowing bright red. Without a word, Hyun-gu drags Kim out of the car barrier to an isolated area. Once there, Hyun-gu turns to Kim and coldly informs him that Kim has only two choices. Hyun-gu reveals a small box in his massive hand, containing pervy doctor's special juice. He explains that Kim's first choice is to drink the special juice right here, right now. The second choice? Refusal will result in immediate death. Kim, hearing this, looks annoyed and frustrated. With a smirk, Kim sarcastically remarks that Hyun-gu went through all the trouble of dragging him out here just to say this. Kim mockingly questions whether Hyun-gu brought him to this deserted place because he thought Kim might run away. Kim then boldly declares with a confident smile that he is choosing a third option. He promises to defeat Hyun-gu right there and trap him. Hyun-gu pauses, his face twisting in confusion for a split second. But in the next moment, his expression turns into pure rage. In a matter of seconds, Hyun-gu raises his Hulk-like hands and prepares to crush Kim's head. But just as Hyun-gu's massive hands are about to grab Kim, Kim disappears. Suddenly, a barrier appears between Kim and Hyun-gu. From behind the barrier, Pax hovers with a small red bowling ball in his hand. Hyun-gu, clearly baffled, struggles to understand where Kim has gone and how the barrier materialized in front of him. At that moment, Pax launches the red bowling ball with incredible force. It speeds through the air and hits Hyun-gu square in the chest. With a loud bang, Hyun-gu stumbles back a few steps. From behind the portal, Kim peeks his head out and sarcastically asks Hyun-gu if 90 kilometers per hour was too fast for him. Before Hyun-gu can respond, Kim launches another bowling ball directly at Hyun-gu's feet at the same speed. The impact sends Hyun-gu slightly off balance, causing him to stumble to the ground. Despite being hit twice, Hyun-gu appears unharmed. He looks irritated rather than hurt. With a low growl, Hyun-gu demands to know what kind of bullshit ability Kim is using. Before Hyun-gu can regain his balance, a stack of 20 kilograms iron plates falls from above and hits him hard. Hyun-gu, now visibly confused, struggles to understand what is happening. Kim, standing confidently behind his portal, tells Hyun-gu that he won't be able to move for a while because of what's coming next. With a mocking tone, Kim apologizes in advance for the pain. Kim adds with a smirk that the 200 kilograms iron plates he's about to drop might break Hyun-gu's bones. He mockingly advises Hyun-gu to stand still like a good boy. In a dramatic sequence, a 200 kilograms iron plate falls directly in front of Hyun-gu. Within seconds, more iron plates stack on top, reaching 400 kilograms. But Hyun-gu, unstoppable, lets out a loud growl and with an explosive burst of strength, lifts the entire stack of almost 1,000 kilograms of iron plates. Kim, visibly surprised, watches as Hyun-gu effortlessly lifts the plates into the air. But Kim quickly regains his composure and opens a portal above Hyun-gu's head. All the iron plates Hyun-gu is holding suddenly disappear into the portal. The next moment, a stack of 10,000 kilograms. Iron plates falls from another portal and surrounds Hyun-gu. The plates form a perfect circle, trapping Hyungu in a tower-like structure. It looks like a metal castle built by stacking coins as children. Kim, standing confidently, thanks Hyungu for standing still. He reveals that the first iron plate was just a distraction. Within seconds, the 10,000 kilograms of iron plates forms an impenetrable prison around Hyungu, leaving him trapped and powerless. After that, Kim slowly walks away from Hyungu, his thoughts racing. Kim thinks to himself that Hyungu's body is incredibly sturdy and tough. If Hyungu had been a normal human, he would have been crushed and dead by now. As Kim approaches Juhi, she looks tense and worried. She immediately asks Kim about the loud banging noises she heard outside. Juhi's face reflects her anxiety as she questions if Kim encountered Hyungu. Kim replies calmly, explaining that he did see Hyungu and that Hyungu had taken him to a secluded corner. Hearing this, Juhi's worry deepens, and she begins peppering Kim with questions. But Kim simply points behind her and says, "Look behind you." Juhi turns, and her eyes widen in shock. Standing tall in the distance is a huge castle made of iron plates. Juhi's confusion spills out as she bombards Kim with questions. "What is all this? What happened?" Kim, brushing off the details, gives her a short explanation. He tells her that he has trapped Hyungu inside that iron structure. At least for now, they don't need to be afraid of Hyungu. Hearing this, Juhi breathes a sigh of relief. They then start discussing how they've distributed food and water to everyone in the hospital. Now, all they have to do is wait for Young-soo to arrive so they can move forward with their plan. But just as they're talking, a figure approaches from behind. Kim and Juhi turn sharply to their right and see Young-soo slowly stumbling towards them. His expression is worried, and he's holding his head. His voice is heavy as he complains about the intense pain in his head and body. Juhi's eyes narrow in recognition, and she immediately identifies the symptom. She declares that Young-soo is suffering from mind control and drug poisoning. She suspects that the pervy doctor's special juice has been injected into Young-soo's system. Without wasting a moment, Kim and Juhi run to Young-soo. Kim asks him if he ate anything suspicious, but Young-soo shakes his head and explains that he hasn't eaten or drunk anything himself. He only distributed food to the hospital patients. That's when Juhi notices a small wound on Young-soo's hand with blood seeping out. Her mind quickly pieces the clues together. Someone must have injected the drug into Young-soo's body with a needle while pretending to thank him. Juhi suspects that this was part of the pervy doctor's manipulative scheme. Kim immediately cuts in, saying that this isn't the time to discuss how it happened. They need to stabilize Young-soo immediately. If the poison's effects fully take hold, Young-soo will become another mindless servant of the pervy doctor. Kim, visibly worried, decides to take Young-soo into his portal. He hopes that within the subspace, he'll be able to figure out a solution before the poison fully consumes Young-soo. But just as Young-soo steps into the portal, a system notification pops up. The system informs Kim that an unidentified energy attempted to enter the subspace but was expelled. Almost instantly, Young-soo's complaints of pain vanish. His headache disappears, his body feels normal again, and the signs of mind control fade away. Kim stands there, awestruck, as he realizes what has happened. The subspace has a built-in mechanism that nullifies all external drugs and poison. This realization gives Kim a dangerously clever idea. Kim quickly opens the portal again and teleports Young-soo inside. The system once again neutralizes the effects of the poison. Young-soo looks confused but relieved as he regains control of his body. He doesn't understand how the mind control disappeared so quickly. On the other hand, Kim, Juhi, and Young-soo exchange knowing smiles. Kim explains to them that he never expected his subspace to have such an incredible defensive ability. It nullifies all external mental attacks. The scene shifts, and we see Hyungu reuniting with his mother. It's an emotional moment as he hugs her tightly, tears streaming down his face. He tells her to eat well and rest. Later, a fully recovered Hyungu approaches Kim and apologizes profusely. He explains that while under the drug's influence, he could see and hear everything but couldn't control his body. This realization fills him with shame and embarrassment. Hyungu then vows revenge. With a determined expression, he declares that he will personally teach that bastard, pervy doctor a lesson. He stomps down the hospital hallway, his heavy footsteps echoing like thunder. Before leaving, Hyungu thanks Kim with sincerity, promising that if Kim ever needs his help, he'll come at a moment's notice. Meanwhile, Juhi turns to Kim and asks if he thinks Hyungu will be okay going to face the pervy doctor alone. Kim reassures her, saying that Hyungu is increasingly strong. No ordinary monster, let alone the pervy doctor, can harm him. The scene shifts again, and we see the pervy doctor receiving a system notification. The notification informs him that the connection with his minion, Hyun-gu, has been severed. Slowly, the pervy doctor begins to hear Hyun-gu's heavy footsteps approaching. The pervy doctor smirks confidently and turns around, convinced that Hyun-gu has come under his mind control. He casually greets Hyun-gu, but his confidence quickly shatters when he sees the rage in Hyun-gu's eyes. Before the pervy doctor can say much, Hyun-gu's fist connects with his face. With a single punch, Hyun-gu smashes the pervy doctor's head. The doctor collapses to the ground, lifeless. Wow! I can't believe the confidence of that pervy doctor to say spare me. After that, the scene shifts, showing Kim, Young-soo, and Joo-hee standing together, deep in thought about how to free all the people in the hospital from the